guys. Is that better? I hope so. My apologies, everybody. This is a strange set of circumstances this evening. Yep. Is that better? Is that better, everybody? There it is. Okay, good. Sorry, that was crazy. I still have a bit of an issue with my connection today. We got a new Wi-Fi setup, and I don't know that it's actually working 100%. But nevertheless, I'm with you this evening now, and I can see at least your comments coming through. I have wine in front of me. You do too. I'm in the kitchen of some of you, and that's cool. So Robert's with us. Curtis is here. Jan, yes. Kate, awesome. It's clearer too. Good. Okay. So overall, I don't know. We have some technological issues, and I have this whole huge space above me. But for now, we'll let it roll and just work with what we've got, because we've got wine and we've got each other. So that's all we need. We're looking at a red wine tonight, which is cool. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Tony and Tony and Julie were going to start to kind of pick more reds for the season than. And as a result, we've kind of had back-to-back reds. So, Train, you're saying it's the clearest it's ever seen. Okay, good. I don't. Sometimes the mistakes turn out better than what you anticipate otherwise, right? So, I'm happy to hear that. So, we did try to fix some of our connectivity issues, and I'm hoping that this is partly better. But I was on my computer and it wasn't working really well. So, this is perhaps a little bit better. So, not so dark. Susan's noting, yep, let's get us back into focus here. So is it a clear wine, hazy wine? Is it, would you say kind of a reddish wine, a purple, ruby, garnet, tawny? Where do you put the redness of this wine? On what part of the spectrum of color? Swanbergs are in and decanted it an hour ago. You guys are always on top of things and ahead of the game, which is cool. Tony told me I needed to decant this a little bit earlier, and I got to it maybe 10 minutes ago. So Robert's noting the beauty of the color. I agree. It has a sheen to it, doesn't it? It has a luster that's gorgeous. And Susan's noting that she thinks it's pale, and I agree with that. And it has a little garnet color. It does have a little bit of like along the rim, a garnet color that definitely takes you away from purple, right? So it's not a purple wine. It's a little bit lighter. The overall profile there. So what do you know about wines to know already? And Kate's beating me to the punch. Like, she looks a lot like an Oregon Pinot I'm drinking. Still haven't managed to buy any of the mystery wines, but she's saying that what we have here, and let's try to go in for the super close-up shot, is a lot like an Oregon Pinot. And I was going to say, when you know you have something pale, it's a little bit of a luster to it, is red, tawnied, what potential varietals could you be talking about? And absolutely, right off the bat, Pinot Noir is one of those things, right? You would probably not say it's Cabernet. You would probably not say that it's Tannat. You would not say that it's Petit Verdot. So those varietals are sort of out of the running based on just the visual inspection of the wine. Are they out of the running fully? No. But they give you an indication just by way of the visual appearance. So you're starting to build that profile. And Brian Nobbs says, Sarah Nobbs is saying it's plum ruby. Cool. Christine's joining us this evening. Hi, Christine. Hello from Michigan. That's awesome. Johnny Sanders is saying it's very slow legs. And right, that discussion we started again multiple weeks back, but certainly we continued last week with respect to the legs. Yeah, they're forming. And so you were talking about some pretty high alcohol, perhaps. I mean, they're sheeting a little bit here. Let's get in closer. You can see how they're sheeting a touch here. I'll swirl again and let it fall. See how they're going relatively fast? They're forming and moving quickly. I wouldn't say super fast, but they're not syrupy. So this is a moderate alcohol wine, just based on that presentation. So that's what you're looking at right there. You're looking at either it has sugar or alcohol in it, and well, for sure wine has alcohol. So it's got sugar and alcohol, or just mostly alcohol by way of fermenting the wine dry. So in this case, the tears or the legs are forming relatively quick. I'm not sure you can see that that well here. I wonder if I put up a page behind it. No, that doesn't make it any better. But you can see, I can see that they're sheeting down through there. That gives you an indication that this wine is moderate alcohol. Maybe I wouldn't call it light alcohol, because it definitely is forming and they are maintaining their structure as the tears are falling down. But this is a wine that has light color, rubyish to tawny color, plum ruby color, that has a good deal of legs, but not so much so that it's just like the power of that 14% plus Brunello that we had last week, for example. Swanbergs were saying the nose is reminiscent of a Chianti that his grandfather gave him as a kid. That's so cool. That what, taste and smell in particular has the power of memory. It locks memories in our brains, and that's the most amazing part about cuisine in general. I think food and wine, we seek to create memories that last, and food and wine is the easiest way that I know of, in a way certainly that I'm most passionate about, to create those linkages, those stories, those shared experiences that form memories. And a grandfather sharing Chianti with you would do that for sure. Johnny, I'm not saying it's not cheating, so I don't think your glasses are necessarily faulty, and glasses do make a difference, but it's going a little bit quicker than I would say than thick. So I'm thinking maybe like 12.5, between 12.5 and 13.5%. So let's break that down, right? So average 12% wine would be, so a lighter bodied wine would be less than 12. I would say 12 to sort of 13.5, maybe 13.75, but 13.5 is medium, and then 13.5 on up. Certainly 14.5, 15% wines would be full-bodied wines, and it's sometimes hard to tell. This is one of the indications that you might get, because the visual might help you figure that out better than what's on the palate. Some 14% plus alcohol wines carry themselves beautifully well, and you don't even know on the palate that they're warmer or that they're hotter. So, James Scott is with us this evening. Hello. Oh, and Adrian wrote that. Excuse me, Jeff. Thank you for that clarification. Adrian's grandfather shared the Chianti story. That's one that I would remember too. Okay, so we've got pale, clearish in color. We've got ruby tawny. We've got light-bodied wine. We have a visual recognition of this potentially being even Oregon Pinot Noir. We have Chianti. It has a pretty robust smell coming off of it. Yes, it is expressive, right? So when you're under the nose category of our tasting sheet and you're looking at the nose air element there, the condition is clean. It's not faulted. It doesn't have any faults necessarily to it. And then it has an intensity that's either light, medium, or pronounced. In this case, it's pretty pronounced. It's not making us work for it as much. So what are you getting on the nose if it's pronounced? And Denise is watching. Thank you for that. And Alfie, hi there, sir. Every week that you keep chiming in, it is wonderful. It's great to have you with us. Tons and tons of fill in the blank. What fruit do you smell most right off the bat? More fruit flavors on the nose for me, Isabel, to answer your question. A lot of cherry, a whole bunch of cherry that would give you a beautiful profile of fresh cherry, kind of cooked cherry, candied cherry, like maraschino cherry. And Matthew's picking up much more earth than fruit. For me, I got a ton of cherry. Yeah, Brenda's picking that up too. Matthew, what are you picking up in terms of earth and flavors? Susan's always good with her descriptors. She's got strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, and it's jammy. Candy's picking up a bit of a fading aroma, and Kevin's alluding to a little bit of Band-Aid quality, which is a fault technically, and would be an indication perhaps of some volatile acidity. Brenda's picking up a slight muskiness. The knobs are throwing in some dark cherry. And Kate's throwing out cherry pie. Oregon Pinot she's got, and she's just saying that it's maybe swaying her opinion here. Dried to, also toast and some charred wood. Picking up more of those raspberries too, Brian and Sarah. Jen's now just joining us. Thank you, Jen. We're working our way through a pale red wine that has some earthen notes, some charred wood notes, some toasty notes, but over all of that, sort of a spectrum of cherry, some raspberry. Nicole's picking up a little blackberry. The foxes are hitting on that too with a little black fruit. So where does that take you guys? Right off the bat, nose. Jan's noting that she's got blackberry there in the taste, but a plum nose. So that could take you. So when I get plum and some of that reddish fruit, I think of Merlot, which can have some black fruit there too. I think the cherry also is a definite indicator for potential Sangiovese, like the Chianti was noted. Also potentially Pinot Noir. So it smells less and less like Pinot though to me. More and more like maybe Merlot. I always appreciate how Jeff likes to go with his gut in the first initial impression. It comes out ablazing. So he's doing that now with South America. On first open, he thought it was South America. Candy's picking up a little bit of what Susan noted in terms of the burnt wood on the finish. Nicole is saying her nose is saying Italy once again. Yeah, it could be very well an Italian production, especially a northern Italian kind of Merlot. Willamette Pinot would be way too easy in a blind tasting, Kate said. And I agree. I don't know that this is that. It has, it's lacking the kind of licoricey element sometimes that I pick up on Willamette Pinot Noir. So I don't think it's that, but we should certainly consider that still. I think it has a little bit more structure than the Pinot Noir could, potentially from the Willamette Valley. Tanya's joining us. Hi, Tanya. Welcome. And Matthew's seconding Italy. All right, so we're building a semi-profile that at least is presently leading us toward the old world, but we have some South America there too, and South America would be giving us a new world option, certainly too. And Matthew Carroll's joining us. Hey, Matt, man, how are you, sir? Matt is an uber wine expert, and super excited to have him with us. Matt, we're dealing with a light-bodied red that has sort of plum, cherry, raspberry, maybe a little bit of blackberry notes with a bit of that toasted wood, burnt toast quality to the end of the experience. It is, we think, about a medium weight wine based on its appearance and the legs that are kind of forming on the glass. So for those of you that are not with the exact wine in front of you, you can kind of use those descriptors as a way to describe what's going on here. And Kathy's just joined us. Hey, Kathy, I was wondering if you're going to join us this evening. And she's thrown out Zweihalt already. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I think Austrian red for sure could be an option. Lorna's thrown out some dry stone or picking up on some dry stone. And yeah, Matt, it's fun. This is cool. We get together each week, all of us, with a mystery wine that we sell here, bagged at the restaurant. This one they put in a black bag for me, but it comes brown paper bagged, and we work our way through the wine. So Kathy doesn't have the wine. Gotcha. So yeah, Kathy, same thing. We're looking at this wine here having an Italian potential, an Austrian potential. I think that's absolutely a fair consideration. And I think there's a chance that there's a South American element there, although Jeff, I think, just noted too that that was what he initially thought, and it seems to have blown off. He's picking up a little bit more sea breeze, kind of minerality to it. And Isabel, I'm not picking up flowers. I'm poor with flowers typically. How about you guys? Anything floral here? Let's work on taste for a second, just so we can nail taste down. I agree. I'm not picking any floral up. Susan's not either. Robert's not. Susan's picking up a little chocolate in the finish. Dirty, earthy, chocolate on the back palate from Jeff. So everybody's sort of centering in on the same elements that are in the palate. Let's talk about taste as differentiated from the palate and the aroma, right? So taste differentiated from flavor. So taste being sour, and the tannic structure, and the length of the wine and the body. Let's work on those elements. Again, if you're following along, this would be the palate portion of your tasting sheet right here. And is this wine dry? Off dry? Sweet? And Kate, yeah, that's probably right up your alley. I think we do have some more wine left over too. If you're interested, we can always certainly make a bottle available to you if you get back out our ways. Yep, absolutely, you can pick it up this weekend. Yeah, it's dry for sure. And Matthew, it should be on our website. You can find the sheet there, or next time you pick up wine, just ask us and we'll print one out for you. No problem. And Susan's asking about which spice was noted earlier. So this is a dry wine with a low, medium, or high acidity. And determine the acidity kind of on the side of your palate, usually on the side of your mouth. Are you puckering? Do you salivate for a couple seconds after the taste? 10 seconds, longer than that? And so that's where the acidity kind of comes in. Johnny, up to the dryness question. Off dry. On the very finish, is there any lingering sweetness? That's where you kind of pick up on the dryness of the wine. I don't think there's much here. I mean, maybe a little tiny residual, but very, very little. It would be classified as a dry wine. And so this is kind of medium plus acidity. Are you still salivating? I am. Medium, maybe medium acidity. Yeah, it's kind of goes with the profile too. If this is a lighter bodied wine with some of that reddish fruit character and a lower kind of alcohol, we could have higher acidity, less ripeness. We're not getting kind of that raisiny, jammy, fruity quality, although some picked up some jammy elements in the cherry and a jammy element with some jammy raspberry. So there's a little bit of ripeness here, but generally it is not super ripe and there's acidity to it. I'm still salivating, so do you feel that kind of underneath your tongue, around your tongue, maybe on the sides of your mouth? Certainly for me, underneath my tongue. I'm getting a lot of acidity. So this is a wine that has medium acidity, medium body. Would you say this has a lot of tannin, a little bit of tannin, somewhere in between? And that tannin usually bonds to your gums a little bit. It's a structured quality to it. There's a little tannin here, but not a lot. That cocoa note's coming on a little bit more for me too. Yeah, it has some tannin. Thinnest, tiniest, Johnny's saying, tiniest cherry sweetness still for us. May also be the lower tannin, so it seems less dry. Susan's saying it's dry, medium plus acid, medium minus tannin, medium alcohol, medium body, medium plus finish, and medium intensity. I think all those are pretty much right on. This is a pretty medium wine. Brenda's joining us, and Tony says he's got his jammies on. Yep, jammies on with a little bit of a jam in the wine too. That goes really well. That's a perfect pairing. The cocoa is coming on strong, which is neat. And the cocoa would be an indication perhaps of some wood. Not necessarily a varietal determinant. It would give you an idea that this wine was aged in a little bit of wood, although I'm not getting a ton of that, right? We got a little bit of that toasty quality. It's not like a new overt power wood. It's there and it sort of lingers at the finish. It's kind of balanced nicely. Definitely is present, but Jen's giving a shout out to Jammy Jams. So, ooh, it's just kind of kicking it Wow, this just opened up. It's 22 minutes in, and this is what happens every week. Anybody get a little burst of pepper? Green pepper element for me there too. Black pepper, green pepper. It just happened. Almost like a stewed bell pepper. Wow, this wine just changed dramatically for me 1 minute ago. Black pepper, the tannins kind of opened up a little bit. I don't know what just happened. I think I poured a little bit more from the decanter is what happened. And the wine just blossomed. Cherries there, the structures though coming on very nicely. Wow. Brian said he's thinking 10 minutes before me. Green pepper is coming through, and tannin is coming on stronger. It was very light. It's my first pour, the last part of my first pour. It was light and pleasant and expressive. But then the second pour that was sitting here in the decanter with a lot more oxygen and a little bit more wine, woo, this thing just exploded. That's so cool. Had this experience, the same experience, the 20 plus minute experience with some guests the other night, or for lunch actually yesterday. And their wine, they brought a special wine in to celebrate birthday, and it's wine they've been saving for about 8 years, and it was showing okay. It was, with all the hype and excitement built up to save a wine, it wasn't showing the way they wanted it to. We waited 20 minutes, and then boom, it showed up to the party. It was like, hey, I was asleep in there. You had me sleeping in there for 8 years. You can't expect me to kind of jump out and perform. And 20 minutes in, it started to do just that. So, yeah, Isabel's noting a pyrazine attack. Pyrazine is a term that relates to the green bell pepper kind of quality that exists in Cabernet Sauvignon, for example, Cabernet Franc, for example. And so, Zweigelt. Susan, thank you for noting that. Zweigelt is a grape that is from Austria typically, grown other places as well. I don't know a whole bunch to give you in terms of the overall profile. Maybe someone can look that up as they're on with us and give us kind of a general read of what the descriptors are for Zweigelt. But basically it's a medium weight wine, typically tart fruit, high acid, some tannin. So we're describing that in a pretty fair way. And Jen's saying that this does not pair well with Papa John. Okay. I don't know. It depends on what you got on the pizza. If you have some sausage on that pizza with the tomato tanginess, I think you might pull it off. But Swanbergs are still thinking Italy. I like there's a brambly quality to the fruit now. What does that mean? Brambly, like the fruit on the vine, that woodiness of the vine, and the bramble from the vine, right? And the fruit together kind of create a different smell than just the fruit. And the foxes are still picking up a little bit of minerality. I'm coaxing this along to try to catch up to where you are, those of you that aerated and decanted this about 30 minutes before, and I'm continually swirling and swirling. Kathy's noting that red cherry, raspberry, black pepper, and chocolate are all descriptors, I'm assuming, Kathy, of Zweigelt, because if that's the case, we're looking at Zweigelt pretty seriously. And Jen's noting that they did have sausage. It's a kid's party. Yeah, that's what you gotta have. Pepperoni and cheese, or sausage and cheese, that's what happens. Yeah, this is more and more that way. And so there's a quality of that brambly fruit that I pick up a lot of times in some Italian wine, and I pick it up in Austria too, where in Austria, you get that interplay of some ripeness in fruit and some cool climate elements, so that you get the high acid, you get lower alcohol. And Matt Carroll, I told you, he's a super expert. He's throwing in some clues for us. It all throws a whole bunch of tobacco barbecue quality to it in his experience. There was a definite toastiness for folks that started out. Powers of suggestion are are strong, and so tobacco can be found now. Thank you, Matt. There's a little bit of sweet tobacco leaf. Jan Nelson saying that maybe Nebbiolo. I mean, we should have considered Nebbiolo. I don't think the tannins are particularly strong like Nebbiolo, but now I got to go back because the tannins have emerged a little bit more, and we should consider Nebbiolo. But I was kind of initially thinking Merlot when I first smelled it, and I was thinking Merlot Northern Italy, or Merlot from Austria too, and Zweigelt fits well into that. The tannins are emerging more. I think we could talk about them being a Nebbiolo, and we should. It has tannin there. The cherry's there. I don't know about the chocolate element being something that you would find from Nebbiolo as much. South African Cab Sauv that Lorna's asking a question. Could be. I think that's a fair question too. And Matt's, the Swanbergs or Jeff rather is asking about a blend. I'm not particularly picking up the dimension for a blend here, Jeff, but maybe. And Matt's noting too that, or he's asking, are we getting an Italian deli, i.e. kind of some of that herbal element with meatiness, which you might get from Chinon or Cabernet Franc from the Loire? And that's a great question. And Isabel's asking about Pinotage, and that's a possibility. You could get some of that kind of burnt rubber element here and some of that sinewy tannin that you might get from the Pinotage. That's potential as well. I mean, if we're building just general outlines, Pinotage, Zweigelt, Merlot, could we be talking about Chinon and Cabernet Franc? The tannins are a little bit softer. And it's that cocoa, chocolate, cherry, raspberry element. And Michelle's noting that that Northern Italy shares Austrian roots, and you're right there. So in that kind of realm, I'm comfortable there. Wow. So Cabernet Sauvignon from South Africa. This is maybe not enough dark fruit. And the pyrazines could be there. It'd be very underripe kind of Cabernet Sauvignon from there. I think we would get a little bit more structure, and we would probably get a little bit darker fruit. Pinotage, definitely not picking up a kind of petrol note or that rubber element. And yes, Isabel, our consideration list is big. Valpolicella from Michelle. Yeah, there's a potential there. Yeah, there is a potential there. I'm not sure how I would parse this out. And Johnny's asking about Southern Tyrol, excuse me. I don't know. And Matt's asking about, from Nebbiolo perspective, circling back to Nebbiolo, are we getting enough Campari, kind of rose hip, oversteep tea, bitter notes? And no, I'm not. That rose element is certainly not present here. Candy's saying she's sticking with Pinot Noir as she thought from the look. That's fair. New Zealand Pinot, yeah, you can get some of that herbal tea element, and I'm not picking that up as much here. I don't think you could get faulted for hitting New Zealand Pinot Noir. I don't think you get faulted for hitting Pinot Noir for this. I don't think you'd faulted necessarily for saying this might be an interesting Langhe kind of Pinot Nebbiolo. Even a lighter Chinon, for example. It's a possibility there. Christine's noting that it's great with her turkey burger. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, something meaty without a lot of fat and something you wouldn't eat necessarily rare. This would be beautiful with that, especially if you have a little fruit element. Like if you had a turkey burger with cranberry, that'd be pretty amazing with this. Northern Italy for the Foxes. So Jeff, you're retracting, and I'm glad we're not betting Snickers on this one because you would have gone South America first, and now you're going to Italy. So Valpolicella for you, kind of Northern Italy or further north, and Merlot. I'm still there's that brambly element for me, and the tannic structure. I would be comfortable, I think, sticking to Austria and playing with Zweigelt. mostly because of that cocoa quality. And as Kathy read for us, or noted for us rather, some of the descriptors for this vibe out, I think it hit pretty well. The tannins came on stronger now. All right, folks, let's recap, right, where we were at. Amarone, no, Jeff, I wouldn't go Amarone because it's just that would be too big, too raisiny, too powerful, a lot more alcohol. Even the Ripasso, I think, would give you a little more of that style. But the Valpolicella, just a nice kind of easy drink in Valpolicella. Someone noted earlier that this wine isn't terribly complex. It has stuff going on, but it's pleasant. I want to drink another glass. That's a positive quality about this particular wine. But it doesn't have that intensity and power that we would see in Amarone. We would get bigger wine. So the Valpolicella blend, Jeff is noting, Swanberg Jeff is noting, so he's talking about Corvina, Molinara, and Rondinella being a potential Valpolicella blend. And I think you could be sitting in that camp too. Whew, that's tough. All right, we're gonna split, I think, a number of us. We got Valpolicella blend. It's gaining a little bit more juiciness, isn't it? So I think I'm catching up to Johnny, where you were saying that there's like this little residual like cherry quality. That's coming now out for me. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, this is more of a moving target wine. It's very interesting. I mean, each week the wines have changed after a course of 20 minutes, but that 20 minutes has changed for me, and that 30 minutes has changed again. So Johnny's saying Northern Italy and Valpolicella. It just gained a dimension, didn't it? For me, for those of you that are like a half hour ahead, are you experiencing what I just kind of dismissed as a potential blend because I thought it was relatively straightforward and simple? There's now like a little more dimension to this wine. There's a little bit more softness, suppleness, as well as the tannin. So the tannin was sort of retreated in the beginning. It was more about the acidity. And then the tannin kind of caught up to the acidity. And now the overall fleshiness of the wine, the fruit quality, the body weight, it's just sort of, it's like it was deflated and it kind of inflated at 30 minutes out for me, 35 minutes out. And that could bring me back into Italy from Austria. Yeah, and it's just kind of like I'm getting some of that burnt toasty element is turning into like caramelized sugar, like a brown sugar. There's a molassesy element that's there now. That's fun. The acidity's still there, really present. Oh wow, this wine keeps getting better. The first judge of this wine would not have been a fair judge because this wine is an exciting wine now. So, all right, I'm gonna go with you guys. I think I like the idea of a blend more than I did initially. I was comfortable for a moment kind of in the Veneto with Merlot, but now I think we're kind of bouncing around and we're getting some of that spectrum of fruit from the cherry to sort of the plum and the brambly element to the cooked element to the candied element. So a blend kind of makes some sense to account for all of that variety. The tannin's there and the acidity's there, so you might get that from that. So I'm comfortable saying this is probably a nice sort of easygoing but well-made Valpolicella blend from the Veneto region of Italy. Anybody want to throw something out last before we get to it? I'm going to untie this while you have your last chance to put a stake in the ground and get credit if we're all wrong here. I've got a bag inside of a bag. Look at that. So it's super challenged. All right. Vintage place. Matt is saying too before I get to it. Yeah. Cool. the brambly fruit, tobacco, baker's chocolate, and the structure you called, I'd be happy with a call like the Zweigelt, or take a flyer on something like wacky like Lagrange. Lagrange would be an interesting call. Yeah, that would be we're getting there. We've done this for over a half of a year, so we're like 30 experiences of these in, and that means we probably need to find some interesting wines like Lagrange potentially. No, and you're right, Isabel, they were not letting me cheat this week. So I had a double blind tasting. If it's Zweigelt, I'm happy to be wrong. I think we went down that road pretty comfortably. I'm going to go Valpolicella and stay with that, but I don't know the wine, and I'll learn something for sure one way or another. All right. I should have said vintage. I think it's relatively new vintage, so maybe, let's say 2018. Oh, cool, 17. And this is a Valpolicella Ripasso. So, Jeff, you were right. It's got a little bit more to it, a little more quality to it than I was allowing for sure. So, this is Classico Superiore, so it has a little more alcohol. It has 14% alcohol. I think this is a good example of how that could wear well in a wine and not necessarily pick it up. And I agree, Matt, we have an awesome group of tasters, and thank you for joining us this evening. If you're ever out this way, I'll happily get you a bottle of the next one and you can join us for real, but your notes were super helpful. This is, I didn't pick up any kind of raisiny quality for the Ripasso element here. Ripasso meaning to repass, if you will, so fruit pressed and the pressing of the raisinated grapes that you might use for Amarone are then re-soaked with Valpolicella to give it a little bit more intensity and a little more alcohol and a profile that's a little bit different than just the Valpolicella. This presented, I think, initially more Valpolicella. Well, for me, not at all Valpolicella. Like it was very simple, and then it developed into what it is, and it needed a moment. This is a really tasty wine for 45 minutes in, right? It kind of just has bloomed, and maybe that just needs another bit of time. So I think we get partial credit for saying Valpolicella. It's coming from the Classico area, the center core of Valpolicella, and it's Superiore, so it has an extra degree of alcohol and a little bit more aging capability, and it's aged for a touch longer. This is a lovely little wine. So, Cosarola, 2017, Valpolicella Ripasso. Yeah. Are you getting raisins now? Because I'm not. That's so neat. We went from like tons of cherries all the way through to some black fruits, jammy raspberries, and then brought it back to sort of a brambly quality and then kind of a confection sugared quality. This is a cool wine that takes you on a journey all the way through its experience. It's really cool. At first nose and at first sip, it was not this wine. And so it's a totally different wine now, or it has emerged and evolved finally into what it's meant to be. I think this is a great candidate for a decant. And it's a great example, I think, too, of, I don't know if I have the price here with this particular bottle, but $25 or $30. Put this wine down and let it sit for a couple of years and see where it goes, because I think this wine will surprise you and reward you for a couple of years of aging. It'll just get that much more interesting. So really good stuff. Susan saying she's not picking up raisins. Trans saying, how do you tell what type of wine it is when you can't read what's on the bottle? You can't read the actual verbiage, or you can't see it. I'm not sure quite where your comment's coming from, Tran. So if you can't see because it's blind, then we do what we just did. If you can't understand what's here, you can look things up. Like Valpolicella is the actual region, and Superiore is, or Ripasso rather, is a type of production from that particular space. Classico Superiore has its own particular rules and set of things that you have to do with it. This is the producer, and then the alcohol is in the back of this particular label. So there's a whole bunch with respect to labels that we could go down that rabbit hole another time. But and the Swanbergs are saying power suggestion that they're picking up raisins, and I think I'm with him there too. So before we suggest any more that isn't or perhaps is in the wine, I'll bid you adieu, and I'll say that we get to spend a little bit more time next week, Thursday, with you, and I think that is a fun program. So those of you that bought the wines already, or those that you plan on doing it, it's the 29th, and it's 2 wines, 1 wine for Tony and 1 wine for me, and we're going to do it at the same time, or in succession. So we have a white, I believe, and a red, and so if you're picking up the wines, please note that there's 2. One of them needs to be chilled, one of them doesn't. It should be on the label. So looking forward to that very much. I'll see everybody next week. Until then, have a great week. Cheers all.